I'm back. Sorry, bumping into my desk. Uh, how's everybody doing now this afternoon, later in the afternoon? I realized earlier today in the nooner that I said the 11:59er. What I meant was 12:59er. And if you caught that, bonus points for you. It's so hard to not be like perfectionist with our stuff, whenever we put stuff out and we want to like everything has to be so perfect. So when I realized that I said that wrong, and maybe I didn't, maybe I just thought I said it wrong. I haven't actually watched it. So anyway, I get like a little obsessed, like a little, oh, I need to go tell everybody I didn't mean that. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Isn't that weird? Anyway, maybe you're not like that. I get like that. So it's just one of those things that when you do practice personal internal awareness, you start to notice all these little things about yourself. Um, so today we're continuing with our option A or option B, I don't know, story, lesson, information, whatever. This is not the only two options in the world. Okay, this is an archetype, an easy way to tell the story, and I'm using my mother and my father as examples, but they do not, of course, completely line up 100% with all of these things. This is just I just feel like this information is really important because of the situation with my mother specifically. And then I get to witness Lee when he comes to visit and how healthy he is and how alive he is. And he's a year older than her. And she looks at me sometimes with a deer in headlights like she has no idea who I am or where she's at. And it's like, what happened? So we've covered the physical body, which was the easy one. Obviously, exercise, right? Eat right, exercise, blah, blah, blah. Then we covered kind of mental and emotional together, which is about dealing with your trauma. Deal with your shit. See the therapist. My mom was a nurse. This is another thing, just real quick. She was a nurse for, I don't know, 100 years, whatever it was. And I swear to God, every time I hear somebody tell me they're going to nursing school or they have somebody in their life that's going to nursing school, I always say, see a therapist. Okay, get the work done. Because when her memory first started to fade, she only remembered the worst stories, the most painful, saddest, traumatic things that happened to her while she was a nurse. And she would repeat those stories over and over again. And they morphed from one thing into another until eventually it was just about, I don't even want to say. And so I see that and I witnessed that in her. And so I just tell people, oh my God, if you're in medical industry, please, even if you think you're okay, even if you think it's not that big of a deal to be a part of this, go see a therapist. Please go see something. And an energy healer, which I didn't really cover too much about the energy body. That was really more about the mental body, but the emotional body. Yeah, the mental and emotional body. I haven't covered the energy body. Maybe that's today. Maybe that's next time. Today we're talking about spirituality. Super hard for me to talk about this, okay? Because um, I don't want to be offensive, and I worry a lot about saying things that are going to offend people. Like even on the physical body day when I talked about reliance on doctors instead of personal responsibility. I know that triggered some people. I know that struck some chords, and it's hard to kind of look at yourself and not think, well, yeah, but I need this. I need this medicine. I need this surgery. I need this whatever or else. And the problem is we don't see that there are other options out there. They're just not fun. They're not easy. It's not as easy as take a pill. It's going to take some work. So anyway, spirituality. Again, the archetype of my parents are not exact, but I will say this. My mother's idea of spirituality was an attachment to the church. There's nothing wrong with church. Church is amazing. Church can be very beneficial and helpful to people. But what church is, it is a tool to use for your spirituality, I don't believe that it should be your spirituality. In other words, spirituality is nothing more than just a connection to a higher power, right? An understanding of a connection, a deep connection to a higher, understanding that you're a part of it and it's a part of you, and then being able to understand that everything else is a part of it, or everyone else, maybe that's your belief, and are a part of that same greater energy, God, spirit, the universe, creator, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. All that matters is you create a connection with it. That is spirituality. And church is a great tool to use to have that connection, right? But it doesn't need to be what you're connected to. So what I witnessed, and now looking back with, my perfect 2020 hindsight, I see that was what I grew up with, was this deep connection to the church. I mean, I spent more time at church as a young person than anywhere but school. Like, that was what we spent a lot of our time on. We worked on things there, we volunteered there, we were involved in a lot of things at the church. And it wasn't so much about the people, because the people came in and the people went out. But what happened eventually later on in her life was the church isn't a person. It isn't something that you can really connect to. It can have an energy of its own, but the church wasn't there for her when she needed them to be, after all the years that she spent dedicating her life to the church, and she was failing in health. Her husband had passed away. She was struggling to drive. She couldn't get to church anymore. And nobody came. I think she did have one lady that was part of one service that they offered to anybody who's called homebound or whatever. But as soon as she moved to a little bit too far away, that was no longer an option. I mean, it was just, and that wasn't even anything that was personal just for her. She was just considered lumped in with this other group of people. Like, she wasn't anything important to the church. I also worry about talking about this because a lot of people that are from that church are on my Facebook page, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I think everybody does the best they can with what they have always, and that's what my parents did. That's what my mother did. That's what Lee did when he, couldn't be a father, and he stepped away from that role to go and do the journeying that he did, that has led him to a healthier lifestyle. That was the best that he could do at that time. And, I believe that all those people were doing what they were capable of doing. And I don't know what the solution would have been for her at that time. Maybe she wouldn't have ever gotten to that point had she had a deeper relationship with God to begin with, because when you have that deep connection with God, with spirit, and you truly believe that you're a part of it, you wouldn't do the things to yourself that she was doing to herself. Okay, so she was over medicating, is a nice way to say it, and had completely stopped taking care of her physical body at that point. And we all need a little help sometimes. We all need a tribe. We all need people to be there for us. And I still live with a lot of guilt of not being able to be there for her. This really went down. We had to get her out of her house. She could no longer live alone when my youngest was 1. I had 3 children under the age of 5. I guess my oldest had just turned 5. I had a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So up until that time, I'd been making babies and having babies. Meanwhile, my mother's over here struggling on her own with no help, very little help, and almost no help from the church. The person who did step up to help her the most were her next door neighbor and this other lady, and they did the best they could with what they had. But one of them made the situation worse. But anyway, the point is, when you attach yourself to the structure instead of to the tool that the structure is supposed to be to get you to spirit, you have nothing, that you're not attached to something that's permanent, that's forever, that's infinite. You're attached to something that has rotating, revolving door of people coming in and going out. And you may or may not be attached to that person or this person or whatever. And it's hard. Okay. So when I talk about this, Lee didn't have a perfect spirituality either. He did choose a different path of different deeper forms of meditation. He practiced all the things, moving meditation like Tai Chi. He practiced sitting like transcendental meditation, Buddhist meditation practices, and continued to learn through that. He did attend churches and more like group gatherings of people that would come together for spiritual purposes and and it seems to have worked for him. He still kind of does that. He still has a Tai Chi class that he teaches and a meditation class that he helps teach sometimes. And um, when he needs people, they're there. He's created a network of people that work for him in his needs currently, which isn't a whole lot in the place where he lives. So again, this is really hard for me to talk about because there is no perfect. And as I stated earlier, I kind of have an issue with perfection. But what I can tell you is you have to connect to spirit on a deep level in a way that I believe you have to connect to spirit on a deep level in a way that you start to recognize that you are a part of that and that that is a part of you. And then you start to see that everyone else is also. Could you imagine if everyone in the world recognized that God lives in everyone else in the world? Could you imagine what this planet would be like right now if we saw God in everyone and everything? How would you treat the people that you run into? How would you treat people that you know? How would you treat yourself if you really recognize that this is a temple? Yeah. I'm not good at it. Okay. I strive, I desire to be, but I'm not great at it because I am a human fucking being with all of the shit that we have. But that's all I think that's about to care for the spiritual body. And I feel very called to kind of help with that by doing my own work and then by talking about it. So, okay, I hope some of that made sense because it's really hard to talk about. And I really do have a lot of fear of people being angry at me for saying things that I've said. So, if you are angry at me, tell me, please. God, tell me. I love it. Communication is so huge for me right now. Like, let's fucking communicate with me. So, anyway, um, thank you for listening. There will be at least one more part, maybe two, because I didn't even mention the energy body yet. How I could forget, I don't know. It's like part of what I do for a living, but um, we could talk about that. And then I want to kind of bring it all together. So I thank you so much again um, for your time. And I love you. And I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much. Bye.